a playlist original.
It's your host Tori, and who is ready to be petty? Welcome back to another episode of RTBP. I am so glad you're here. Today I am joined by two very special guests, Margot and Emily from the Old Millennials podcast, and we had so much fun talking about some very random but very fun pop culture topics. We do mention the very impactful legacy of Life with Derek, a Canadian Disney Channel TV show. And as I sat down to record this intro, I just did a quick last check of the internet I was going to say interwebs, I was truly an old millennial, but I did a last quick check of what was up online, just in case I missed something groundbreaking, and I did. It's that the Life with Derek sequel movie got filmed in Ontario this summer. It is called Life with Luca, and our faves, Casey and Derek, are back as a mom with 3 kids and a dad, a rock star single dad with 1 son. And we don't know about the other cast members, all the other sibs and the parents and friends and stuff like that. But I'm just so confused because the premise was Casey and Derek's dad and mom got together and they had a blended family. And now Casey and Derek have kids. Are they going to have a blended family? Once again, asking the question, are they fucking? Because it is, an age-old question at this point. It has haunted my entire adult existence. Let's just say that. But I cannot wait for this incredible, probably cinematic masterpiece. So, they'll definitely be covered on that. So fucking binge Life with Derek right now. It would be a real easy binge. Let me tell you that. Right now, just a little side tangent. I am binging Below Deck Sailing Yacht. I'm on season 2, episode 2. Season 1 went down real smooth. I think I binged that over the last 4 days. I'm doing well mentally, if you wanted to know, clearly. But it's so fun, and I love shows that are so bingeable like this. Okay, I'm getting off track. The last thing I wanted to say, because it is huge news, news I've been now thinking about for 4 days, but Taylor Swift is releasing her 10th studio album, Midnights. It looks so depressing and so sad. It's out in my peak seasonal depression time, October 21st, and no one could be more excited for me. I have been listening to folklore on my depression walks, my troll strolls, as Emily Rose from It's Become a Whole Thing has coined. But I'm ready for some new content, and we're heading into that season that if literally someone looks happy, I'm pissed. So I just cannot wait. I've been obviously down the rabbit hole about all the conspiracy theories. Okay, picture this. I'm laying in my bed. I have my RTPP cup full of water in one hand. I have my phone with TikTok and Taylor Swift conspiracies in the other hand. And then my laptop is playing Below Deck. That's been me for the last 4 days. So I'm just so excited. I'm so excited. Let me know if Nick and I should do a deep dive, our folklore deep dive. And tell me your conspiracy theories. I want to hear what you're most excited for. Anyways, that's all from me. I think it's time to get to today's episode. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Emily and Margot. I'm back with two very special guests, Emily and Margot from the Old Millennials podcast. Emily, Margot, how are you both doing?
Thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to be chatting pop culture.
Us too.
Very excited.
And especially, we are very ready to be petty, as we often are. Wake
Yeah.
up ready. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Stay hungry, stay foolish, stay petty.
Clear eyes, heart full of petty.
Literally, sometimes I feel like I am one of those bros, like a finance bro, being like, if you stay ready,
Hustle mentality.
like that is me. Yes, but with pettiness. So that's perfect. Can you tell the listeners, the RTBP listeners, a little bit about yourselves and your podcast?
I'll start. Hey, I'm Emily. I live in Oakland. I co-host Old Millennials podcast. I'm a huge fan of pop culture. Our podcast is a deep dive on shallow topics from the 90s, 2000s. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, beyond. So we basically try to find the connections from what's going on, ripped from the headlines of celeb gossip and reboots and whatnot, and find the tie-ins to what was going on in our lives back when we were preteens or teens and how it's all related.
Oh God, is it related? Hey, like that could be a thesis.
It really,
a master's
our
thesis.
podcast really sometimes feels like that. We're like, are we working towards our dissertation? Like, will we? I feel like every time we learn something new and horrifying and how it can be applied to present day and how much we have and haven't learned, but we make it fun. We're fun.
Yeah.
You know, some of the topics are a little heavy. We try to avoid some heavy topics, and sometimes it goes there, but I think we have a good time. And we unfortunately reference 9/11 a lot. So there's that. Because it was like a seminal moment that has a sort of ripple in pop culture that is
everywhere.
It touches everything in ways that you wouldn't even think.
Yeah, 100%. Like, even I was on a plane recently and I watched the first 5 episodes of Sex and the City. And even just like, or like, I remember watching Friends and they had like a small tribute to 9/11. And like, I'm Canadian. We went through this. They're not Canadian. I am Canadian. They're both French. So I just assumed they were Quebecois. But even in Canada, like, it really was maybe not as life altering as for Americans, but like the trauma and like, we watched it, like, it was playing in our school, like our elementary school, like on a, one of those where they wheel out the TVs with the VCRs and stuff like that. Like, it was, it definitely was pivotal for lots of millennials, elder millennials like us. What made you both choose this specific topic? Because obviously there's a lot of things that intersect with millennial culture, pop culture, but what was the specific draw of like the growing up aspect with like current day?
I think that kind
culture
of evolved more out of as time went on, and the longer we were talking about pop culture, it's like you can't help but notice these parallels, especially once some of these like retrospective docs. Like, I think something that kind of made us tie it more heavily together as seasons went on was the framing of Britney Spears doc, where we had talked about so many topics that had a cross section with that, whether it was tabloid culture or diet culture, and just how mean media and just society in general was to women in the early 2000s, and like kind of the mark on your psyche that it leaves you. And when you're older, you have the perspective to be able to, and the vocabulary to verbalize the things that made you feel uncomfortable. And I think there's a little bit of that too. But I mean, when we started out, it was mostly because we really wanted to talk about the hills in Laguna Beach. And it was like before everybody had a rewatch show and all that stuff. And we just really wanted to get the backstory. Like, we really love like a behind the scenes, like our show is a little bit like behind the music or like making of the music video, because that's sort of like the format that like imprinted on us like the most. But I think that the trying to draw parallels is just something that like naturally evolved over time as we got better at making a podcast.
I think what's interesting in our shift is like we, to your point, Margot, we started like just as reboot culture was really booming and like everybody and their mother, because everyone was coming out with a streaming platform, was announcing a reboot or a remake of X,
A reunion.
Reunion of whatever 90s, 2000 sitcoms or reality shows, or they're rebooting it with a new factor, or we're going to make it diverse this time because we'll recognize that there aren't just white people in the world. Like there was a bit of that, but what's been interesting in the last 2 seasons, I feel like we've shifted to being kind of oracles, because we'll talk about a topic and then like 3 weeks later there's an announcement. Like we talked about the iPod evolution, and like 3 weeks later Apple announced they were retiring the iPod altogether. So it's been interesting to see us, recapping what's going on around us announcement wise, for us making predictions to what ends up happening just, a few weeks, months later.
I love that, especially because I feel like people like that grew up in the 90s and 2000s, I feel like are predicting a lot of these like trends. Like I'm definitely on like trend spotting TikTok, and I feel like a lot of, I guess they do this for a living, so they're more inclined to be right because they're probably better at it. But like it's wild at how you can just see this cyclical tracking of these kind of themes, or even like when you said like diet culture, it's like, well, that's still persistent. It's just repackaged for the 2022 lens. It's now like,
it's like health and wellness, right? Like you wouldn't call it like an Atkins diet. You would call it like a meat happy lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like it just is packed, like you said, packaged differently. Like what was it, like Snackwell cookies, Emily, the ones that you were talking about? Like those are just, they're just something that you get like in a, or like
Luna bars,
daily harvest thing,
Everything now is like low sugar. So you have a low sugar candy alternative. You have like a low sugar this or that. I mean, I even have like a family friend I grew up with. She has a business of low sugar gummies, and she's in Urban Outfitters and like all these stores, which is amazing. But it's amazing how like now that's the new thing that we focused on, and it went from being low fat to sugar or low sugar alternatives.
Yeah, so interesting. It's like that's what I'm also finding, and I'm assuming this is what you're saying too, but that it is just like same shit, different day. Like truly, it's so wild, which makes me feel discouraged. like that like progress isn't happening as like quick as I'm hoping for with some of these topics.
I mean, I think the silver lining that I cling to is like everything is a cycle. So hopefully this cycle will come to its natural conclusion at some point, and then we can kind of make way for something new. I mean, especially entertainment industry related, it's like you kind of got to wait till like some of these execs like step down or die or whatever for like real change to happen. But real change eventually will. Like I'm not worried about like movie theaters closing, because like people will always want to go to the movies. You just have to make stuff that's more compelling. And it's like movie studios are the last people to understand that. It's just you have to hold fast to what you want to actually see, and then something will happen slowly but surely.
And I think there is like, to your point, the other thing is, even though we've changed some of the words, and it's a little bit of like the more things change, the more they stay the same in some ways, I do think it's really refreshing to start to see at least like those people who are in the rooms kind of making decisions or being featured at least in a lot of these things, even if it's just a reboot of an existing show. They are people who reflect the world that we live in now, little by little. Like those changes are starting to show up permanently, and not just as a seasonal thing or a quick response to something going on.
Except Che Diaz. Che Diaz is a league of their own.
No pun intended.
Literally. Okay, let's shift gear to like the more fun side of millennial culture. Have you been, since you started with Laguna Beach and The Hills, have you been watching the two Back to the Beach and the rewatch, the Hills rewatch?
No, but we were one of 9 people who watched both seasons of The Hills reboot. Like it's like us and like Cara Berry from Everyone's Business But Mine and like End of List. Like no one else watched that cursed program. I just like haven't gotten it up in terms of interest to like listen to Kristen Cavallari like have a podcast with Steven. Like I just can't tell if the nostalgia is going to like bum me out or if it's going to be like kind of fun. I hear the behind the scenes stuff is very interesting, but like
Yes.
Whitney, I don't know. I'm not really that. I probably will never check out because it's not really what I'm in. Her
Whitney
adorable husband,
and,
right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be. I really respect Lauren Conrad as time goes on more. That she's just like, I have no interest in making any more money off of this show. Go to Kohl's, spend your Kohl cash with me, and here's my little blog. And I married the guy from was it something corporate, Emily?
Yeah.
I appreciate that she just like lives her life and like doesn't want to give into any of this sort of stuff, and like she's able to like move on. So I kind of have a little less respect for those that like Audrina, who has a whole book. Why unclear? Never gonna read that. But at least Kristen knows how to make good content, like I would have never cared about Draper James or whatever the hell her line is called.
Oh, that's a Reese. Let's put it uncommon.
Yeah, that's
Uncommon
Reese's.
James.
It's
Uncommon James. I got the James. I got half. I got 50%.
Yeah.
But I would have never cared about
half.
her jewelry line if it wasn't for her terrible reality show, which was very entertaining, even though nothing ever happened.
Very Cavallari. I know. But
same.
I watched all 3 seasons.
Why do I follow Shannon Ford? I'm like, who even knows? We're the only ones who know who Shannon Ford is.
Literally, she also like I feel like fell off. Just I feel like she had the world
and
at
all
her
she did
feet
was
and
make shitty
fucked
pop
it up.
sockets for your phone. Girl, what are you doing?
Wild. Yeah, I watched the first couple or listened to the first couple episodes. I did watch all of the Whitney and Timmy ones. I think those were just more fun. Not necessarily like you weren't getting as much like gossip or tea as fans would like, but the Back to the Beach stuff, it seems like Steven doesn't want to take accountability for like anything. So, and they just released the Cabo episode where he was like, stop dancing on the bar, you expletive. So I'm like, I'm over this. You had my attention for 5 episodes or whatever, and I'm now over it. So
wow, that might be interesting to
see.
just listen to that. If I was going to listen to any episode, it'd probably be that one.
Same.
Okay.
Yeah, it just dropped this week. I think part 1 of, because it's
I believe
think Cabo's
so.
2 episodes, right? So yeah, so just the first one is, and you're right, like this is the one that everyone wants to see what he has
because I had to take
about
accountability.
it,
Like
so.
that's extremely frustrating. Like we understand it was a long time ago. You can admit to some fault. I think that's the other positive about Kristen Cavallari is that she just like doesn't care and owns the stuff that she does.
Yeah, she was like, I was a bitch. This was a bully move, like 100%. Yeah, she's authentic in that way, at least. What other, like, I feel like everything is just like Gen Z versus millennial culture. Like, I even saw a video this morning about how it's embarrassing, like, as on TikTok or like as making content or like anything like that. What is your like favorite millennial trend or thing that you like hold on to that Gen Z loves to rip on?
Instagram. You can
I'll never let her
out
go.
of my cold dead fingers, teens. I mean, I am not a TikTok person purposely because it's like that is for Gen Z. I have no problem. Like I had like growing up, like we had LiveJournal, like in MySpace and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that they have TikTok and that I don't need to understand or care or be a part of it. And I don't care if you make fun of me on there. I'm never going to see it, you know? And I respect TikTok for what it is, the way that you have to give it up to YouTube. Like, it's going to be a part of culture, and it has, like, apparently, like, a banging algorithm, and that's how Gen Z, like, looks stuff up, and that's how they search for stuff. And, like, I don't want to clown on it at all. It's just not for me. So don't make fun of me or come for me in Instagram because like grandma likes to do her little Bravo stalking on Instagram and I'm not learning anything new.
I have to say at this point, skinny jeans. Listen, I have a pancake ass, and when skinny jeans, I realized I could do a lot more squats to get to that point. But even in my best shape, it's just not happening for me. And when skinny jeans came up in the indie with the Gen Zers are calling indie sleaze era now. I think that's what they keep referring to because I'm a TikTok lurker, not a TikTok poster.
Same.
You know, it created a new world for me. It was my time to shine. I, for once in my life, had an ass in jeans, and I will gladly have a pair of loose pants here and there. I think that's a great look as well. But good God, you much like you can pry Instagram from Margot's cold dead hands, you can pry my skinny jeans from my cold dead hands.
That's so fucking funny. But I know that, like, I'm 5'1", and I talk about, like, I want someone to do like a control F on my entire podcast episode log of how many times I've brought up skinny jeans. Just like, for 5'1" girls, like, the proportions of skinny jeans are just way better. Like,
oh yeah, 5'3".
Yes, yeah, like, it just makes more sense, and I totally get that. But I got for sure bullied into straight leg jeans from my little sister, who is also a millennial, but just more of a cusper, and I'm sad about it. But I'll just look like a slob. Like, I'll just, yeah, until skinny jeans come back, because we know they'll come back. The ballet flat is back, so
it is.
Yes.
My arch can't support
I know.
that.
I was like,
sorry.
at 30 years old, I'm not putting a ballet flat back on. Like, I deserve arch support. Like, oh my God. I feel like the most millennial thing content I still consume are the Try Guys. Do you remember the BuzzFeed era of like 2014?
Yes.
I was a big Quinta fan, so we're really we're both happy about Abbott Elementary being.
Yes, Quinta is having her day. Ashley and Chantel, I was gonna say Caroline for some reason. Ashley and Chantel just got married this weekend, and I still watch the Try Guys.
I watch a little Try Guys. I've been following Kristen and Jen, who used to be in Ladylike.
Yes.
They split off and do Kitchen and Jorn, and they're great. I really enjoy their content here and there. But I was into Try Guys at one point. I don't know why. We're a little older than you, but like for whatever reason, I got sucked into BuzzFeed kind of in the mid 2010s, like watching a lot of that original content that was coming out of there. And so it's been interesting to follow some of their careers, or when some of them pop up as like random actors on shows.
Yes.
Oh, there was like that guy who had a twin brother on BuzzFeed, and they were both hot, and me and one of my coworkers both had a huge crush on him, and I'm totally blanking on his name. He kind of has a like Gideon Yago quality to him. Oh my God, I'm totally spacing. I'm sorry. Matt Stopera.
Oh,
yes,
of course. Like Britney Spears' biggest fan. He and Ilana from Broad City, I think, were roommates at one point too.
Anyway, my coworker Scott and I had a huge crush on him, and and that's my relationship to BuzzFeed.
And he was in Fanography, which was one of those short-lived MTV shows about his obsession with Britney
Spears.
For that reason, I'll forever check on BuzzFeed just to see like what he's up to.
Yeah, and so hot. Like, you've like...
Yeah, just had a huge crush on him. So yeah, we're like, oh, we have to check BuzzFeed again to see what they're publishing. Oh no.
Yeah, like, what's Matt up to? Okay, I love that. And what is something, if anything, you would change about millennial culture, other than the bad stuff? We already know diet culture and tabloids and like tragic world events and all of that stuff. But what about the like petty shit?
Oh, you know what? Consumer culture, where we felt the need to buy things that had a logo on it for a long time. I think it's coming back a little with Zers because 90s fashions are coming back. But that was like such a big part of our middle school, high school life, was like, oh, why can't my parents afford this t-shirt that has like, you know, Abercrombie or whatever written across? I feel like logo culture was like a huge thing.
That's such a good point, because like I feel so bad for making my parents, like, I remember having like literal meltdowns in Abercrombie being like, why can't you buy me this $50 US, I'm in Canadian dollars, so it's probably like 75 Canadian dollar jean mini skirt that I would probably wear for one summer and then like I don't know where it'd go, donate, like, yeah. And then wearing everything with a matching like Abercrombie t-shirt or American Eagle t-shirt. That was the look.
There's an episode of Atlanta where like it opens on like Ern when he's younger going to like a Ross to buy like a knockoff FUBU shirt to like be cool. Yes. And I was like, I've never felt more seen, except it was like a knockoff Roxy shirt for me for middle school, or like Billabong or whatever, even though I had never touched a surf and or skateboard and nor have I since.
Oh, so. Yeah. My cousins, I remember because I was a little bit younger than my cousins and they all wore Roxy and Quicksilver and Billabong and Riptide or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Rip Curl. And like,
Rip Curl.
Yeah. And I was like, that's so fucking cool. We live in the interior of like a province. Like,
I did not live near an ocean. Yeah. And yet I was like, yes, at Marshall's, let me buy this knockoff Roxy shirt.
Yeah, that's so funny. But I do feel like a little bit of that is coming back. I definitely think like some of it came back with like Supreme and like, of course, like there's like the classic designer handbags and stuff that have that. But I think it is kind of coming back a little bit.
Please leave the Dooney and Burke bags in the past.
Yes. Like logos God, what I would have done for a rainbow printed Dooney and Burke bag in grade 7. Like, what the fuck?
I literally had to like petition my mom to get me that bag for like my 16th birthday. And it was like a huge deal. And I was like, I chose it not over a car, but like I could have probably gotten my license faster if I wasn't haranguing her for this bag. But I did wear it straight into the ground. I wore it like every single day.
That's good.
For like 3 years.
You got your money's worth.
I just wanted to be like Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, same. I feel like mine is like my social media presence. I just feel like I just don't know what to do with my own social profiles. I feel like everything I post is so cringe, like millennial cringe. So now I just don't post.
Oh no!
I don't like.
Yeah, we should all go back to MySpace. That's all. I'm say.
100%. Yeah,
I want a song to autoplay every time somebody visits my page.
Yeah, me too. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, is it cringe if I just make a Twitter account of me just like tweeting lyrics of songs? Like I'm updating my Facebook status. Like.
That's honestly, I wish I had the courage to do that because, sometimes a lyric will just hit right. But it's got to be like a burner account for sure because no one can know.
No one can know. Like, it's so embarrassing.
I think the one thing I would change is the trend of like flat ironing the shit out of your hair. God, I mean, I can't tell you how many straighteners I went through from like 6th grade through like early college, just trying to change the texture of my hair to be stick straight and super shiny despite having like curly wavy hair. And so I'm really glad that like more naturalistic hair is on trend. And also a combination of not caring is very helpful to me. But yes, I would take back the obsession with like just super straight, shiny hair.
Yeah, I know. How many like $25 hair straighteners did I buy from Walmart for them to like A, ruin my hair, B, die out after like 10 uses?
I had to buy a crappy one in the airport in Europe because I didn't realize you had to have like the little converter and that thing fell apart within like 4 uses. And then I just had to have frizzy hair the rest of the time.
There is an anxiety that these Gen Zers and beyond, if they don't bring back this culture, will never experience. And that is the leaving your home, hoping to God you turned off.
Oh my God.
Literally.
You don't come back home to a house burnt to a crisp.
Literally, that was my biggest fear. Or like I once left mine on. It didn't burn down the house, but it left a huge mark on my mom's wood floors.
Oh no.
And I was like, fuck. Like,
I definitely melted part of a bathroom counter in middle school or high school, and it was a rental. My mom was very pissed.
Yeah. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. Okay, let's get into our topics for today. Just a hodgepodge of pop culture stories. We're going to talk about the Olivia Wilde and Florence Pugh feud. Ross Lynch and Raini Rodriguez, which is like, I'm probably forcing this topic on both of you, but like I just had to talk about it for like 2 seconds. And then Danielle Fishel and Ryder Strong, they're doing a podcast. Danielle shared some tea this week. And then both Margot and Emily are going to nominate a Pettyweight Champion of the Week or multiple, and then share their This Week in Petty Stories. So this came up so much. I put an AMA out for topics from the listeners, and I got like 10 that just said Olivia Wilde and Florence Pugh. I wrote down, the first one I got was at K Cooper 20, so I gave them the credit, but this is like all anyone's talking about. So just like a little summary if people don't know what I'm referencing, but Don't Worry Darling has been like in production since 2020. And when it first started, there was press that came out that Olivia Wilde, the director and like creator, etc., had fired Shia LaBeouf, who was the male main character. And the timeline's like a little hazy about like when stuff about his abuse to FK Twigs had come out. I feel like I was speaking to some other podcasters and they were saying that those stories hadn't come. I don't want to say stories. Her lived experience, like her sharing what she endured from Shia LaBeouf hadn't come out yet, but there was obviously still rumors floating around of how awful Shia LaBeouf is as a person since like for years. I feel like that was like kind of known. So she says she fired him. She gets a lot of praise for, you know, having a safe and healthy work environment on set, which Hollywood is known for like having the complete opposite. That kind of gets wrapped up. And then there's a bunch of drama apparently on set that we're hearing about. Florence Pugh doesn't mention the movie on her Instagram. And then it gets noted that she's only going to one press stop. And then finally, Shia LaBeouf came out with emails and a video of Olivia Wilde trying to get him to come back because allegedly he quit. She didn't fire him and she was like despy to have him back on set for some reason. What do you both think of this? Like, this is, I don't feel like we usually get to see these inner workings of like what celebrities like discuss with each other.
So I've been obsessed with this rumor for quite some time. I have texted Emily ad nauseum about this because I find it to be endlessly fascinating. And now it's kind of like taken this turn where I feel like Olivia Wilde is like making a bunch of unforced errors in the press of all of this, because to circle back to this original Variety interview, like she's doing what she's supposed to do, right? Like she's hyping up her leading lady despite what's going on in the background. She's like trying to maintain this professionalism. But the line from WB when Shia left was that it was just like a scheduling conflict or whatever. Like it wasn't that he was fired. It wasn't that he quit. It was like very neutral. It's like, couldn't work it out. Sorry. And why you would double down and say you fired him, like, please don't make me side with Shia LaBeouf, who just today said, oh, that movie Honey Boy that I wrote that was like allegedly about my abusive father, JK, I made it all up. Like, please don't make me side with this man. But like, he is kind of coming at her like, that's not true, Ellen. Like, here's the video, not only proving that you didn't fire him and that you begged him to come back, but that you're also a fucking horse girl. And then on top of everything else, like he has like emails to back up everything that he's saying. So like, why would you do that when you know that's out there? Like, unfortunately, I have to like kind of say that Shia is right, because it does seem like you're just trying to take advantage of the general distaste for him when you really could have just tried to, like, I don't know, hype up Harry's performance, because you have a note in the doc about the clip that came out. Like, his performance is like that accent, like Dorit Kemsley from Beverly Hills, like wishes, like it was just like all over the place. So it's hard to like watch her crash and burn. But I think, I mean, I don't know if you listen to The Town with Matthew Bologna. Oh, that's not his real last name, but people, that's what the way it's spelled always makes my brain go Bologna. But he has a new media outlet called Puck, and he just like wrote a long, interesting piece about how like how she just like keeps stepping in it, and like clearly something is off, and now the movie is overshadowed by the behind the scenes drama. And so I don't really know what that means for like her career, but basically it's like she could have released this movie that was just sort of like meh, like a sophomore slump, and then just gone on to make a third movie and no one would have known. And like she has the villain right there. It's Jason Sudeikis like serving her papers publicly, but instead she decides to like target Shia, and then the whole thing kind of like falls apart. And the way that she talks about Florence Pugh in that video without knowing anything, I think that tells you, coupled with her silence this entire time, like it's a huge movie. Well, it's like a huge studio movie, and they're really betting on Olivia Wilde and Florence Pugh to like bring in the money. The way that she says Miss Flo, like, or it's just like, why are you doing? Like, stop, please.
There's so much there where I just have to think like Florence Pugh continues to be the smartest one in the room.
Yeah.
Like, she has kept her mouth shut. Mm-hmm. She has silenced.
She's got
Golden.
Dune 2. She's got Dune 2, which is like a foolproof cover.
Yeah.
She's got Dune 2. She's got a foolproof cover. She's got great cooking. She's had great cooking videos in the past. She's got plenty of content to work with that does not have to deal with her having to promote this movie where she clearly felt unsafe and raised concerns about Shia LaBeouf. And two, was probably really frustrated because allegedly Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles were not following COVID protocols because they filmed this pre-vaccine world. And so it was like end of 2020, early 2021 is when they were filming all of this. Right. And the rumor is that they went to Harry Styles' manager's wedding where Harry officiated.
Yeah, those pictures
and he wore a silk mask, but like was not, it was more a like accessory than an actual.
It was not like an N95.
No, ma'am.
This is not a medical mask. It's a fashion mask. And although there's a time and a place, maybe not endangering your entire cast and crew is like slightly more important.
Yes. And so I think between, what seems to be Olivia's lack of concern of promoting a safe set without creeps, her lack of professionalism, and then her and Harry's decisions to not wear masks, to preach about this bubble that they should be maintaining during production, and then to do the complete opposite. I, in Florence Pugh's shoes, would be very frustrated. I think she is very smart in not saying anything, and she is just letting the chips fall into place. And I think what's really ultimately sad to me is that Olivia Wilde, when she came out with Booksmart, it was such a fun movie, fantastic movie, a great cast, really emphasized, highlighting more female filmmakers, female production crews, all that, and telling female narratives where girls enjoy having sex and having a raunchy kind of sex comedy about two girls. Like, I thought that was fantastic. But I think what we're seeing now is like, because of her missteps in all sorts of directions, she ultimately, I hate to say this, some people go to director jail. And I feel like after this, Olivia Wilde, and I hate to say it's because she's a woman, but because Hollywood does not give women second chances oftentimes, she can't come back from this. Like, I don't know.
I disagree with that. I think that if the movie does well, it won't fucking matter. Because at the end of the day, I think Olivia Wilde made the unfortunate mistake that whatever press is good press. She is literally lip syncing for her fucking life right now, trying to drum up interest while actively having no support from any of the other actors. I mean, Harry had a whole thing come out in Rolling Stone where he like barely fucking mentioned this movie. Instead, said a bunch of like dumb shit about like queer love, where you're just like, dude, please just sing your little tune. And then said that he wasn't in a relationship. It's like,
yeah, and that he had never been in like a public relationship, and like his girlfriend's like, "Hey, like I'm right here.
Why don't you I don't know, do something?" But like they're not helping her out, so she's trying to like cover her own ass. And I think that ultimately, if this does well, even if it's not a critical success and just makes money, she'll be fine. And to Emily's point, it's like the transition from like indie female director to studio female director is very hard to do. And I don't think that she's taking it for granted. I don't think that she went too outside of her budget. So maybe they wait another year or something till it dies down. I think that she's going to have more problem with actors than with studios and getting money.
That makes sense.
Because what actor would want? I understand that all directors have to use mind games and different tricks and stuff or whatever. I totally understand that. And it's also something about directing that I just like personally don't love, because you're just managing personalities. But like if they now know that you actively like talk shit about them and then kind of like pit them against each other, what real actor is going to want to work with you? Like that would just, I don't know, I'm not sure.
That's such a good point, because like she came out with that really long Instagram post giving all the props to Florence Pugh, saying how much she was obsessed with her. And then a week later, the misflow of it all came out. And it's like, you look two-faced. And yeah, I don't know if like this is it for her. Which is, again, like, I feel like she had a lot of opportunities to do. Like, I loved Booksmart. I am that Tyra Banks meme of being like, I'm rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. Like, that's me right now. Just because, yeah, I've always really liked, following her career and stuff. And I feel like Jason Sudeikis is not Ted Lasso, and he cheated on his first wife, I think.
Yes, he cheated on Kay Cannon, who hasn't made it a secret that he's a total dirtbag. I mean, like, he served you fucking custody papers on purpose. On the biggest, like one of the biggest nights of your career. Yeah. Just fucking like say something about that. You didn't have to. That's the whole thing. Is like you didn't have to go there. Like people are already on your side and want to like support you and see you win. But instead, you did what you thought was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought it was so odd.
Placate Shia LaBeouf. Like it's just so bad. And then
how embarrassing for you.
So embarrassing. And I would also be pissed because Florence Pugh is like a proper actress. Like she is A-list and serious, and I would be so fucking pissed if I was the female lead and they put Harry Styles, again, love him as a singer, blah blah blah, whatever, he's great, but I would be so pissed if it was like, okay, Harry Styles, like, no, you deserve like Timothy Chalamet or fucking, I don't know, one of the kids from Stranger Things or something. Like, no,
truly, like, you're telling me that everybody else was busy. Like, this was like a peak COVID. This was one of the first things that went into production. It was like a huge deal. And I don't understand. I think Emily and I have talked about this before. We're like, we are the Florence Pugh in the situation, in the sense that, like, if my boss is acting unprofessionally and just sort of like disrespected me multiple times, I'm not going to do my part. Why would I? And it's like, here's my boundary.
Totally. It's like her part per se, but also promoting it on your socials, unless it's part of the contract. It usually is. That's the thing that really set it off for me initially, is that like all actors have it in their contracts. It's built in because it's part of like all of the money that you make. You're not making $1 million just because you played whatever her character's name is in this. It's because you also agreed to make a certain number of appearances and a certain number of social media posts and talk about it in certain interviews. And that's usually all spelled out, unless something happened where it's like, okay, fine, you don't have to do any of that if you're so mad and whatever. But it's very rare. It's like you almost never see that. Do you think that like she saw this coming down the pipeline, so she was like, no worries about posting on socials, and like, press, don't worry, Harry's got it, because like she was scared that Florence was gonna like tattletale on her?
I think that Florence is probably, from everything that I've read about her, is like the consummate professional, So I think it's more like Florence is going to say or do some fake shit. And I don't know. Like, I just think that maybe these contracts weren't very well written. And so she was able to get out of it. Like, that's kind of the only explanation. I think that Olivia Wilde would benefit from some press, like, because this is not the press I think that she was expecting to get, but I guess she'll just take it at this point, since no one else seems to be doing any heavy lifting.
And also, I should not use the word tattletale if you're like, I get like, or complain, like that's not what she would be doing. It would be like sharing what she had experienced like on set. I don't want to give her those kind of like more annoying connotations to that word.
She's employing the thumper method. If you have nothing nice to say nothing at all.
Yeah.
And I think that says more than anything she could say. Because everybody's had like a shitty work experience, right? And they're all kind of the same in the sense of the ways that they're shitty in terms of like how you feel about it when you go through it. But why would she want to dwell on it? Like, if they're not going to force her and she can use Dune 2 as an excuse, then more power to her. She doesn't have to do shit she doesn't want to do. Like, I respect that on all levels in a career. When you get to the point where you're like, if I don't want it, then I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? Clearly nothing.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there was a previous movie clip that came out and people were talking about Harry's acting, his accent. Like, are either of you gonna see this movie?
1000%.
100. We've already talked about this. It's like Margot, a bottle of something, and a date at the local theater.
Emily and I have bad movie nights, so it's not outside of our purview. Plus, like, I think we do want to support it. Like, ultimately, like, however this turns out is however it's already done. Yes. But I would like her to make other movies. I think she's smart. She'll definitely learn from this experience, and hopefully like kind of go about it in a more Beyonce way where she's like, I'm going to release an essay and publish it or don't. I don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely going to see it. Are you going to see it?
I'm so on the fence. Like, I was a yes, and then I was like, I just don't think like, maybe I'll just wait till streaming. Like, it's on some type of streaming platform. I'm also just like not a movie goer, like to the cinema. So I don't see myself going to it, to be honest, but I kind of do want to like see it for the Harry and Florence of it all, but I don't know. It's also apparently about like an abusive relationship and stuff. And I'm just like, I don't have the capacity to watch this, like, to be honest. So I'm going to stick to my, my TikTok clips of Ross and Raini, which is what we're going to talk about next. Did either of you watch Austin and Ally, or were you both too old? Because I was definitely too old.
Way too old.
Way too old. But when you mentioned this in the notes, I swear to God, I thought you were talking about that show Life with Derek.
Oh my God. Can we please discuss?
So there is Margot. I don't know if you ever saw this show Life with Derek. It was kind of on the cusp of like when we stopped watching Disney Channel. And I think I watched it more because my little sister was still watching a bit of Disney. There was a show that's Canadian show, but it was also touted as like a Disney Channel original show called Life with Derek. The premise is a girl and this guy that she goes to school with, their parents, single parents, get married, and so they become stepbrother and stepsister. But there's been a lot of discourse on TikTok about how the relationship portrayed here has a weird bit of sexual tension when you rewatch scenes. And coincidentally, Disney Plus has not been added to Disney Plus among the other Disney channels.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And people are wondering if it's because it's a little too fucking weird when you look back on it and creepy. Sorry for my language if we're not supposed to use language.
You can definitely say that for much to my mother's chagrin. But yeah, it is so funny. So our like Disney Channel was called Family Channel, and I think just they licensed or like, I don't know, had the syndication rights or whatever for most Disney Channel shows. And this show, I was like always rooting for Casey and Derek to get together. Then I'd just be like, just wait a second, they're fucking step siblings. Like, it's like you just would forget in their like 1-to-1 scenes, and then she'd be like, oh, brother, and then you'd be like, oh my God, you're like,
it's very Josh and Cher.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I grew up with loving Clueless, so to me it's not that weird. But also there is also this like discourse online about how like white siblings sometimes have this like sexual tension that makes you really uncomfortable. And I was recently, my husband's very into the HBO docu-series Hard Knocks that follows like a football team. Yes, and there was one of the guys who's like a linebacker on the Niners. All of his sisters and his mom all want to bang him. It's like so uncomfortable watching their scenes all together. I'm like, she's like, look at him run with that football. I was like, could you say it less sexy?
Yeah.
I'm so disturbed.
Yeah, that is disgusting. And like, I feel like people feel way too comfortable sometimes sharing about that stuff online. Or in a Netflix documentary, like, you should be uncomfortable with that. Like,
Do you hear it?
Yeah.
Like, I think I need you to hear it, please.
Yeah.
Were Austin and Allie friends on this show, or
Okay,
were
yes.
they...
So
Okay, good. Just
okay,
making sure.
so I also watched Disney Channel / Family Channel way too long. Like when you're like, oh, we like kind of aged out of it. I was like, I'm still watching. Like I never had that. And then, but Austin and Allie wasn't a show that I was like super obsessed with. But the other stars that came out of Austin and Allie are Laura Marano. Do you know her? She's been in some Netflix TV shows.
The name sounds vaguely familiar.
Very familiar.
Noah Centineo.
Oh, geez.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, so Ross Lynch's Harvey from Sabrina.
Yes.
The, like, reboot.
Yes.
Okay.
So
okay.
he
Just looked him up.
So he was the star in Teen Beach Movie with not Haley Steinfeld, with Maya Mitchell.
Sounds familiar.
She's in a bunch of things as well. You would know if you saw her. But I feel like these shows bred a lot of people that are like, you see them in movies, but they don't have like, they're not A-list. They don't have A-list careers. Kind of like, I don't know, D to C list. So yeah, Ross Lynch, him and his brothers were in a band called R5. And the most recent thing he's been on is definitely Netflix's version of Sabrina. But there has been like a absolute viral TikTok trend pointing out this flirtatious relationship with him and Raini Rodriguez, who is the sister of a child from Modern Family, Rico Rodriguez, whose mom was Sofia Vergara. So yeah, it is blowing up. Basically, a bunch of people. It started from at Zac Efron is dead, and a bunch of people are pulling scenes from old interviews, which just really reminds me of like back in the day when people would pull clips of like Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson.
Oh God, not the Larrys.
The Larrys.
Yeah.
Or like
shipping on Tumblr.
Yes, it just brings me back. It is just like what we talked about. This is why I wanted to talk about it. It's just what we talked about at the start of the episode. It is what we used to do on Tumblr, repackaged and on TikTok. Is my thesis
that's
point.
very true.
Like,
I fully believed in Kaylor. Like
of course.
I bought in.
Of course,
I
still
fully
do.
bought into it. I believe that she also dated Diana Agron from Glee.
Yes.
Like I fully believe that Taylor is the bi icon.
Do you believe that that music video that she did for, is it Me, with all of the drag queens from Drag Race, was like supposed to be her bi coming out, and then she scrapped it at the last minute? Because I've seen that theory on Twitter.
Yes,
yes. I fully believe it, and then
I do too. The evidence is extremely compelling,
and it would be
a true crime podcast on it.
Yes. Like it would be offensive if she wasn't at this point. You're wearing a wig with bi flag colors. God. Anyways, sorry, Emily. Go ahead.
No. I fully believe in Kaylor. I mean, there's like a whole world in which, there's Tumblr. What a place. Like, I mean, does it even, it really did just like ship some interesting people together. But yeah, it was, I feel like you can edit any clip to make it look particularly convincing.
In any stan culture, like shipping happens. Like, you know, I love Bravo, and people love to ship certain couples even if they're not together anymore. True. Or whatever. It like becomes very much like, she left a comment, he liked it. I was like, they're never getting back together. Please relax.
Yeah. That's like me with Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber.
I mean, that's a very compelling back and forth though too.
Yeah, it is such a compelling back and forth. But you're right, like people were doing it with Euphoria on TikTok and Instagram, like with Nate, played by Jacob Elordi, and Cassie and Alexa Demi's character. God, I cannot think of a goddamn
I know, I
name
couldn't remember.
tonight.
I was like, Alexa Demi's character. What's her name?
Yeah. Cassie and name's not my strong suit today. The other thing, so yeah, people are, you're right, it is stan culture. People are pulling these like clips that could be friendly. It's like with Life with Derek. If you take a 10-second clip, you're like, okay, sexual, but in the context, maybe it's friendly. But Ross Lynch is currently on tour, and I feel like he is just a little bit less popular version of Harry Styles. I don't know if you've seen his concert videos, but it is like Harry Styles, but honestly sluttier.
Is he like Dylan O'Brien? He's in a slut era.
100%. Yes, like 100%. I think he did kind of bleach his hair, so it definitely isn't that like kind of
so
like,
you know something is going on.
that era. But he does this one, I think, set or a few songs or whatever, shirtless with a cowboy hat and like basically all the same moves of Harry Styles. It's interesting how there's like kind of the copycats coming out, but it is slutty is all I wanted to say basically.
I love that you went with Harry Styles, because when you said shirtless cowboy hat Mike, the first thought was Magic Mike.
Oh, it is. It's very Magic Mike.
Matthew McConaughey's character.
Yes, it is very much that. It is very much that.
Like singing a shout out to the ladies of Tampa. Like
yes, and it's just all girls in the crowd just like losing their shit. Probably some gay guys too, but like
of course. You know he's tapping into that. He's like, I gotta up my followers, even if it's just thirst. I mean, look at Ashley Angel Olsen. Like all he posts are thirst traps constantly, and he's just a slut for attention, which like who can't relate, right? But the first time I had heard of Ross Lynch was because of the R5 band, where all of his siblings' names all start with R, and I thought that was utterly demented. And I mean, the Kardashians.
I was just gonna say the Kardashians did it,
and
first.
I think that's very odd too.
Yeah,
but the way that R5 was pitched to me was I thought it was a little bit more wholesome. So to hear that he's just like doing his best Matthew McConaughey on stage is like something to hear.
I definitely think R5 is wholesome, and then he did some solo stuff and kind of just like Nick Jonas went the like super slutty route. I feel like
I'm yoked and a slut now.
Yeah, I feel like Nick Jonas had that phase too where he was like, okay, I'm gonna like gain 30 pounds of muscle. Everything is gonna be like BDSM light in my music videos, and like everything's just gonna be like sensual.
This is a quick interruption. As I'm reading Ross Lynch's Wikipedia, I find out he is second cousins with Derek and Julianne Hough.
That's what it is. That's why they were on Who Weekly. That makes so much sense.
Like,
now.
Of course. like of course. Like
the thirsty gene runs strong.
I mean, talk about siblings where things have been weird too. Like,
oh my god, that's the sub theme to the
literally, and I wish it wasn't. Like, God, that's so funny. Okay, let's move on to Danielle Fishel and Rider Strong. Were you big Boy Meets World stans? Yeah, okay.
And a huge crush on Rider Strong.
Of course.
And we have the same birthday. So I was like, oh my God, we're destined to be together. Never happened.
Yeah, same. Well, it's like, I feel like when you look at Corey and then you look at Sean, like no one was picking. Yeah, Sean was
batting so far out of his league.
Oh my God.
So when he cheated on her, I was like, the caucasity is strong with this little Brillo head.
Yeah, that's so true, because I was looking at when I was like doing research for this outline, I was looking at old pictures of Ryder and Danielle, and I was like, she is stunning and he is so fucking cute. And then there's like,
they
Corey
have
Matthews.
incredible hair.
Yeah.
I don't understand. But also, like, Corey, whose name escapes me now, Emily, what's his name?
Ben Savage.
Ben Savage.
Oh, thank
He's
you.
currently running for mayor of West Hollywood, despite...
What?
Like, oh, it's hilarious.
Oh, no.
Despite, like, having the least West Hollywood person you've ever seen. He has, like, one photo with a drag queen. He's like, I love the queer community. You're like, dude...
You know, I could have gotten that picture too at drag brunch.
Yeah, right. Like I also have gone to the Abbey at drag brunch. Okay, this is not a difficult photo.
What's
so funny.
I did not realize that, especially with everything going on with his brother.
Yeah, his brother's a full blown
Interesting.
creep, getting fired from shows and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, we digress.
Who is his brother?
Fred Savage, he was the lead from Wonder Years, and then he was directing episodes of the reboot of the Wonder Years when a flood of complaints against him from a bunch of women that work on the show about his just completely inappropriate behavior. And, he's one of those guys that like hides behind this, like, well, I just want to elevate women, like give women more chances by also touching their butts and doing all sorts of weird stuff that they don't want.
The irony is that on Boy Meets World, he guest starred as a creepy professor who hits on Topanga.
Yes.
And he and Ben Savage, Corey, get into a fight over it and like a physical fight.
Yes.
People have a way of telling on themselves like that, don't
100%. So again, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we just really we're planning those seeds for later. But rewatch podcasts are all of the rage. Which, like, it's fun. It's playing into the nostalgia. But, yeah, sometimes I'm like, I really don't want to hear about this. But, I'm not listening to this podcast, Pod Meets World. Awful name as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now we said it.
Yes, okay, but literally, it's like podcasting has been around for, like, I don't know, 15, 20 years. It's been popular for, I'd say, 10 years. And if you can't come up with a better name than just throwing pod in, like, just swapping out, like, Pod Saves World, like, all of these, I just can't. But anyways, Danielle, who played Topanga, as we just mentioned, and Ryder, who played Sean, they got a fan submitted question, and it was like, was there any crushes or like on off-screen romances? And Danielle was like, I had a crush on Ryder, and also Will Friedle was there too, like, who plays
Does
Eric.
he host it with them?
Yes, he is a third co-host, but like, whatever. Who played Corey's older brother, but anyways, and he had no idea, or acted like he had no idea, or maybe she made it up. I don't know. But nothing happened. She said it was during seasons 1 and 2, which was 1993 and 1994.
And we were like 13, 14 in those seasons at that point. Because I think they start out in middle school.
Yes.
When the show first aired.
Maybe grade 6 or 7.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and then they go to
high school and college.
Yeah, so then they go to high school, probably grade 8, 9. So yeah, it's probably... Yeah. It's just interesting that... And maybe they don't... Maybe it was wholesome, but it's just funny because I feel like a lot of casts, like teen casts that we hear about nowadays, I was thinking of Glee specifically, was like, oh, we were fucking every cast member.
Well, to be fair, they are choir kids. So if they're anything like the choir kids from my high school, that was not a shock.
Checks all the boxes. But
so
I mean, heists between,
but Emily and I, we did a TV Heartthrob episode where we talked about Ryder Strong, and he like really wasn't. I think they didn't hook up at all. Like I don't think there was any. I wouldn't be surprised that he actually didn't have an idea at all, because he wasn't really he wasn't in it. Like he was sort of like a reluctant star, and he really made a point of keeping his like work life separate from his personal life, and so he didn't really hang out with the cast outside of the show. He just sort of like did the thing of like, I show up to work, I hit my mark, I say my lines, and then he just like hung out with like older kids. Like by the time the show wrapped, he was dating like a script supervisor or something who was like significantly older than him. Yikes. And then they like moved in together. That was a little weird. He was like barely 18, but he'd been living on his own. Like that's sort of like the strange thing about a child star is like you are you have the responsibilities of an adult, sometimes more than a regular adult, and you live on your own, and you present as an adult, and so you date older people, or you gravitate to them because people your own age don't get it.
I know, but then your prefrontal
cortex
in retrospect isn't developed.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
But he also, I don't know, maybe it's just a dude thing, but in the interviews that I had read with him when he had talked about it, he sort of like didn't really think it was that big of a deal, and maybe that's just like a guy thing or whatever. But
yeah,
I just found that to be interesting. So I'm not really surprised, although I would have liked to have seen them like hook up on the show.
Yeah,
totally.
To me, there is this is where Boy Meets World stopped and Dawson's Creek started, where Pacey and Joey and Pacey end up together. And I think that maybe, Sean and Topanga should have been explored at one point or another.
Yeah, 100%. You wrote, Emily, in our episode outline that Jenna Fisher on her recap podcast revealed she had a crush on John Krasinski.
Yeah, so it's either on the podcast or in an interview, but she's alluded to the fact that like she was somehow like maybe not in love, but definitely had a thing for John Krasinski, and she thinks that he did as well. Krasinski's never like owned up to it, I think, in interviews because he's trying to be a serious actor. But like I think it's so inevitable to be in on a show with someone for that long, and either you're a teenager or later if you're paired up with someone as a romantic lead, like there has to be a point in which you have to feel something for that person.
Yeah.
So for me to hear that like Danielle Fishel had something for one of her co-stars makes a whole lot of sense to me, because you start on that show when you're 12, 13 and you're on it until you're like 21, 22, like peak hormonal years, like you like, yeah, it all checks out to me. And I think there are probably other recap shows, because everybody's doing a recap podcast these days, where I'm sure someone else has said the same thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with like especially if you're young, like a teen, that I feel like it would get so blurry of what is real life and what is like your character. That's why sometimes when I see these PR relationships, like how the Spider-Man and like Mary Jane character or whatever, like the lead is, 3 for 3 movies they've dated. So that's like Zendaya, obviously, and Tom Holland, and then Kirsten Dunst and
Tobey Maguire,
and then my favorite Spider-Man, Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield. But then I'm like, is that... That's why I'm like, do they have real feelings or is it like PR? Like, I don't know. Like or like Leah Michele and Corey Monteith from Glee. I don't know.
Yeah, like it's beneficial to the show, but it doesn't mean that like the feelings are necessarily manufactured, right?
Yes.
Like, I also think that like when you work on set, you're like with these people like all day, every day, from 6 a.m. to whatever, midnight. And I've worked on sets before, and you like form these like really intense relationships with people just because you're like literally in the trenches together.
Yes.
But then, that's why some of them like Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire, like maybe they don't like withstand like the reality of like when you're like in a real relationship, like in reality, versus like when you're in a relationship like on a set is like kind of different. It's sort of like a Bachelor disassociation, right? Where like it's so intense, like your feelings are so, everything's heightened.
Yes.
I mean, unlike on The Bachelor, like you do have your phone, so there is that, and you can read a book, but like you don't have time. So I totally get like how these things like sort of happen, and then I think when they don't work out, it's not totally surprising. It's just like reality hits the rubber and like of your relationship, and like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
That's such a good point, and I feel like I talk about that all the time with The Bachelor. It's like at the finale, I don't think the lead is lying when they say that they love this person and want to marry this person. I think they think that, and then
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, and then reality sets in and you're like, "Oh fuck." And I don't know if either of you went to camp as a kid, but like camp crushes, I feel like same thing. Or I was an RA in university, and we went through like sometimes like 2-3 week long trainings that were like 8 a.m. till 9 or 10 p.m. And so we would have like training crushes just because, yeah, you're right. You're in this weird situation together. You're spending so much time together, and there's parts that you just kind of skip over a lot of the superficial, relationship building or friendship building, and you just jump into intimate settings together.
In so many ways, it's like you have to trust them. And so to have that sort of level of trust kind of already, whether the intimacy turns out to be a real connection that can be like sustained long term or not, like I think there's just something about that makes it, I don't know, that like sort of heightens everything for you.
Yeah, especially, I mean, there's some casts where like you are even pre-production, they want people to like pretend it's like as if they're old friends. So they do a thing where they like the director has them hang out and stuff. And like I remember reading behind the scenes about like The Big Chill, for example, which is like that movie about the, you know, college friends reuniting after the death of one of their friends who kills himself. And apparently Lawrence Kasdan, the director, had the cast, like Kevin Kline, Glenn Close, and all of them, stay in like a house together for a week or something like that to get to know one another. So there's like even more. And then once you leave the set, there's the press tour. If you have to do the press tour, there's the press tour to bring it all back. So yeah, you're just spending so much time, heightened senses, all that jazz.
Yeah. Let's move on to Pettyweight Champion of the Week. This is the part of the show where our guests nominate a Pettyweight Champion of the Week, someone in the media who did something petty and it was iconic. Emily, who are you nominating this week?
Well, I am going to be nominating, I did a little snooping on ONTD earlier today, and the Page 6 headline, Jennifer Garner thrilled to lose her fourth child, Ben Affleck, to Jennifer Lopez. So I'm going to say, though she has not publicly said this, Jennifer Garner wins my award for the week. I love this headline. I'm very happy about Ben and Jennifer Lopez being together. I think they're adorable and great. But ultimately, I really loved believing that Jennifer Garner truly said that out loud. So yeah,
I love that. That's so perfect, and it's so true about him being the fourth child. Hey, like so petty and so true at the same time. Yeah, I have a weird. It's weird. I have a weird affinity for Jen and Ben, yet I see videos of him and stuff, and he looks fucking miserable.
To Jennifer Gardner's point, like, didn't she like take him to Wendy's before she took him to rehab? Like, truly like a mom move.
Jack in the Box,
so.
and he was sitting in the back, like middle seat. It was very,
oh God.
Yeah, and the pictures.
I mean, this man.
We're going shoe shopping, whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
yes.
He's this poor man.
Yes. Okay, that's a great nomination, and you're right. I feel like it's never going to be, this quote is never going to be attributed to her, but you know that she has said this at some point in the last like 10 years or whatever. What about you, Margot? Who are you nominating?
I'm going to nominate Sylvester Stallone's tattoo cover-up. I don't know if you guys have heard this story, but Sylvester Stallone and his wife, Barbara Flavin, they are getting a divorce because he adopted a Rottweiler that she did not want. And so he didn't think that she would do that. And when she filed papers, he covered up the tattoo he has of her with a portrait of their dog. And there is honestly nothing more petty to me than doing that. So congratulations, Sly.
I'm honestly speechless because it's just so unimaginable that this is something that someone did, but yet it is.
Wino forever walked. So.
Yes.
Right? Like Wino Forever has nothing on this saga. Like, I mean, to choose a dog over your wife is like absolutely bad shit.
100%. And okay, if anyone isn't as old as us, Wino Forever is the Johnny Depp tattoo that he got for Winona Ryder that was like lives on in infamy. But getting a divorce because your partner doesn't want a dog instead of just getting rid of the dog is one thing, but then doubling down with the tattoo is, again, unimaginable. Like, oh my God. And then posting multiple pictures of it on socials is just tripling down, truly.
Yeah, he has the time and the resources to get this level of petty done, and I have nothing but respect for it.
Yeah,
You know?
it is iconic. I will give him that.
I mean, he named one of his daughters Sistine, like the Sistine Chapel. So, like, I really, you know, all of this is of a piece. You know, like this is like the greatest performance art of our time.
Truly.
Have you watched his Amazon movie yet? Sorry.
No.
Oh, the JCVD-ish one? No, I haven't yet, but it's on there.
I feel like anything he's in is something I'm not going to be interested in.
Unless Michael B. Jordan is there.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'll consider
Yes.
it.
Was that Creed? Like, yes. I will.
I'm like, I'm in it for the abs. I'm not listening to a single word he's saying.
100%.
Well, it's not even words.
Yeah.
It's not words. No. It's more of like sounds.
Yeah. God. Well, all the best to Sylvester, his wife, and the dog.
And the dog. May they all live happily ever after.
Yes. Okay, finally, it's time for This Week in Petty, where our guests are going to share stories about something they are petty about that happened in real life. What are you two petty about this week? Maybe Margot, we'll start with you.
Okay. Like I told you before we turned on our mics to record, I don't get a lot of chances to be petty in real life that much because I work from home now.
Same.
So it's really kind of a bummer. So I have like 2 super short ones. And I did have a third one, but I'm afraid that my friend will listen to this and know that I'm talking about her dirtbag boyfriend. So I'm not going to go there. But Emily, you know the housewarming invite. That's what but I won't go there.
Okay.
So instead,
please message me after this.
So unfortunately, a friend of mine was in an accident earlier this month. And so I started this GoFundMe for her. And, you know, that sort of brings people out of the woodwork who want to talk to you, including like exes of all varieties. So like we have a couple ex friends that had like reached out that was like, I don't want anything to do with you. And then I noticed her ex-boyfriend donated a lot of money and didn't email me and didn't do anything. And I was like, wow, like I wish more people could be like this ex. Like, don't come and ask me a bunch of questions. Like, just donate money and I'll get to you when I get to you. And then I got an email from GoFundMe saying that this ex actually requested a refund. And I lost my mind. And so I devoted no less than 2 hours trying to track this asshole down so that I could send him an email and call him a fucking bitch. Couldn't find his email. But if Brian Holmes is listening to this, you're a fucking bitch, Brian. And then my second is that I've been doing this level of petty work stuff since I started working as a copywriter because people don't like to listen to you. I will screenshot your email, highlight the shit that you said, then send it back to you attached, and then say see attachment, which is my way of saying this you. And so I had to do that to my editor last week. And I don't like throwing other women under the bus, but I am not going to tell you 10 times about how you actually said this and it wasn't me. And you shan't be also CCing our boss and then trying to make it look like I did it. So I screenshotted it, highlighted it, sent it in a reply all and said, see attachment. Thanks so much. And then that was kind of the end of that. That usually stops people dead in their tracks. And as someone who was a former mock trial participant, you know, I love nothing more than a trail of receipts. So do not come for me because I will find you.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with this. The GoFundMe thing, God, you
scumbag.
You cannot make this shit up because I was like, that is the right way to do it, where you want to show your support, but you know the boundaries of your current relationship, which is like not talking. So you donate and you move on. And if this person meant a lot to you at some point in your life, you probably want to show your support, and how you can do that is monetarily in this case. But how many GoFundMe like help center people get emails about people asking for refunds? That is absolutely wild to me.
I think the thing that also is like insult to injury is that other members of his family have donated and didn't take it back.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, to go through all of that trouble to take it back is like, wow.
Do you think he thought that people wouldn't know? Like, you donate and then...
I mean, my name is on it, so he knows that I'm going to get alerts. Like, he works in tech. Like, he would know that I know. Okay. He fully knows that I know.
Wild. Holy shit. That's bad. That's really bad.
No, yeah. My suspecting theory is that his current wife is who he cheated on my friend with, caught wind of it, didn't appreciate it, and asked him to take it back. And for that, you are a bitch.
Yeah.
So.
That makes perfect sense to me. And then the email thing, that is so true. I feel like one of my This Week in Petty stories was just in the past 2 years, me bitching that I'm not getting enough petty stress.
I need the release.
I need the release of like a petty moment because I stopped working in the office. And you're right, because there is something about like slamming a phone, like a phone receiver down, or like, I don't know, like a few shady looks or something like that. And I haven't been able to give those, but I've definitely noticed coming quote unquote coming out of the pandemic, that like sometimes I'll see something or like someone do something bad, I will like fully roll my eyes or like something like that and be like, oh my God, you cannot do that. Like I feel like I'm looking at my phone or something so I can just react how I want to react. And I was like, you really, really, truly cannot do that. You're going to get like in major trouble one day.
I notice how many sounds I make now.
Oh yeah, I'm
because
like,
I was like, or like even just like ugh, like, and I'm like, oh, all of you can hear me say that. Oh no,
yeah.
I gotta like watch it. So
100%. Yeah. Well, I'll update the listeners on how my return to work goes this September because, yeah, I feel all of that. But yeah, I'm also a big please see the below correspondence. I've highlighted the parts that you've mentioned in your previous email. What about you, Emily? What is your This Week in Petty?
It's so low stakes. I mean,
okay, but that's what we are here to talk about. Low stakes shit.
I was at a restaurant with a friend on Thursday and I went to use the bathroom, and of course they had like gender neutral restrooms, which I think are fantastic. It should just be that easy. Like let's make it easy for everyone. I assume gentleman comes out of this restroom when I'm waiting to go in. I'm waiting in line, and as he exits, I go into the restroom and I realize the seat is still up.
Oh my God.
I got so mad because I'm like, motherfucker, like it is whatever you do in your own home, that's fine. You are in a public place. This is an all gender restroom. Put the seat down.
Yes.
Put the seat down.
Yes.
So I get out. I mean, I put it down. And then, go to the bathroom, then come out. And then I try to have this conversation with my friend as loudly as I can outside about this guy, hoping, I didn't remember what he looked like, but in the hopes that he was out there so that he could hear that I saw what he did and he's a piece of shit for doing it. No pun intended.
Literally. I'm speechless, but that is one of the worst things to come to, especially I feel like in the States, there's a lot of like toilet seat covers.
Yes.
But there are not in Canada. So your options are toilet paper, paper towel, and sometimes there's not even paper towel because of the blow dryers, whatever. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is my Dyson like air.
Yeah, you're putting your hands into the little slapstick toasters.
Exactly.
For those audio listeners, I'm doing like the motion. Yeah, so your options are like limited to move the seat down yourself.
Yes. Luckily, there were seat covers. Well, no, actually, no, this place did not have them. I think that's the other reason why I was even angrier. Was normally in California, this is something that's unique. It's in the States in general, but particularly in California, we're pretty good about having toilet seat covers, which I love. Mm-hmm. But this particular restaurant did not have them. And so I was like already frustrated enough. And then after this was just like, anyway.
That's
as we're all going back to public appearances, like,
put the seat
back down.
Yeah, 100%.
Put the seat down.
Not that a lot of, I feel like, are listening to this podcast. Like, okay, but like, I was staying.
Spread the word.
I was staying in a hostel a few weeks ago when I was in Boston because hotels are expensive.
They're so expensive.
So expensive. And usually I pick all women like a quad or like 6 beds or even doubles when I've used hostels in the past. But I was booking my combinations pretty late and I could only get mixed gender dorm rooms. And one of the gentlemen in my room, because it was shared bathroom and like 4 bunk beds or 2 bunk beds, so 4 people, left the seat up with pee all over the toilet. And I wanted to die because I have been the girl. I'm like, okay, I've stayed at hostels now for like, I don't know, 10-ish years. Many hostels, I've had such good experiences. So like whenever people are like, oh, I can't do this, I'm like, you should pick a hostel. You can pick higher end ones. I've always had a good experience. Like, my roommates have been like lovely or turned into friends or travel buddies. And like, I'm like the biggest proponent. And then this happened and I was like, never again. I'm too fucking old for this. Like,
I mean, that's like biological warfare.
I know.
Doing?
That's a crime. It's a hate crime.
Yes, it truly was. It was so bad. But yeah, that has never happened to me and hopefully will never happen ever again. Okay, this was so fun. I feel like we covered the gambit of pop culture topics. Where can the listeners find your pod and anything else you two want to plug?
Yeah, you can find us on social media. We are on Instagram and Facebook at the Old Millennials Pod. Additionally, we actually have a Patreon. So if you are interested, we call it the Old Millennial Cinematic Universe. $5 a month US gets you a 2 bonus piece of content. Usually it's 2 bonus podcast episodes that talk about what we've been watching lately. A lot of great docuseries and documentaries on Netflix, Hulu, and beyond. And then sometimes we'll write really interesting think pieces or newsletters. We'll talk about what we're obsessed with, but $5 a month gets you some really exciting content. But you can find our podcast on Apple. You can find it Spotify. Find it really anywhere you listen to podcasts. We've been around for a couple seasons now, so plenty of content to get started on.
And our new season is coming back towards the end of September. No official date yet, but if you follow us on Instagram, we will post about it there.
Lovely. Well, thank you both for coming on.
Thank you for having us. We had a great time. This was so much fun.
Oh, I'm so glad. And there you have it. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you to Emily and Margot for joining me on today's episode. You know the drill. If you haven't already, subscribe and follow me at RTBP Podcast on all social platforms so you can get updates about new episodes, guest appearances, merch, all of that fun stuff. I know school is right around the corner for a lot of us. I work at a university, so I'm there in spirit. I'm not studying though. That would be an absolute nightmare. But if you are starting school this week, I wish the best for you. This is like my birthday, which is on August 31st, is like my New Year's Eve. And September is like starting a new year for me. So I wish you all the best if you're starting out your school year. Keep your spirits up, get that self-care practice down pat, and let's look forward to the holidays. I think that's all for me. I hope you are safe and healthy out there. As always, I'm your host, Tori, and I'm ready to be petty. See you soon. Bye.